Welcome back to Auto Hour, episode 4. My name's Cameron.
I'm Chris.
We're here to bring you guys some more automotive content, and this episode we're going to give you guys a little bit of Q&A and answer, I would say, a pretty popular question when it comes to buying and selling vehicles, including trade specifically. But before we get into that, how was your weekend?
My weekend was not terrible. I've been sick for the last few days, pretty rough. Had a few rough nights of sleep and haven't really been able to help with the kids, so that's been kind of tough, but starting to get on the mend. We're getting through it. Yeah, my 3-year-old has found a new voice and a new attitude in the last few days, so that's been a pleasure to deal with.
Well, it was her birthday recently, so...
Yeah, I don't know if it ticks off that all of a sudden, one day makes a difference, but she turned 3 and she got a whole lot of sass going. She was screaming in the grocery store yesterday. My wife and I just looked at each other like, this can't be real. This is not happening.
What'd she scream about?
Oh, she wanted Nutella pretzels at the checkout line. I mean, that was the
valid argument.
That was the last time she screamed before we removed her from the grocery store. Before that, we were picking up a birthday card for my nephew, and in the birthday card section of the grocery store, there's a little stanchion of stuffed animals, and they're like TY stuffed animals. They're little,
Beanie Babies.
Hand. They're not Beanie Babies. They're actual like stuffed animals made by TY.
Okay,
made Beanie Babies. But she goes over to the section. She's obsessed with them. She's got like 1 or 2 of them at home, whatever. But she goes over to the stanchion yesterday while we're picking out a card, and she finds every one of this little brown puppy dog, and she's got like 4 of them in her arms, and she runs over to my wife and it's like, look what I found, we've got to get them. And my wife and I said, no, you got to put them back. And she takes them one by one and just starts throwing them in the grocery store. She threw one on the ground and kicked it. She threw one at my wife. She threw one at me, and then she went running down the aisle in just complete anger.
Did she have a good arm?
No, I mean,
mediocre.
For a new 3-year-old, like she could throw it pretty good, but we have no idea. I had no words at that point. We picked out a birthday card, and my wife went after her, and I raced to the checkout section so we could be done. But we weren't done, because that's where she came across the Nutella pretzel to-go pack, and we said no, and she screamed at the top of her lungs, I want it! And I kid you not, there was like 3 checkout lines full. Like there were lines back into the freezer section of people, and she's just screaming at the top of her lungs. And my wife took her out of the store, and that was, that was the highlight of the weekend.
It's a valid point. Nutella pretzels are pretty good.
She's never had them, so she wouldn't know.
She knows what she wants. You can't blame her for that.
She could have pointed at anything. It wouldn't matter. And if she got a no as an answer, she would have screamed.
Oh, man. Well.
What about you? How was your weekend?
My weekend, uneventful, actually. Reached out to a lot of clients. Had a barbecue in my HOA.
Nice.
That was nice.
Did you guys talk about putting in the putting green anymore?
No, I didn't bring it up. I'm just going to install it one night. I'm just going to let everybody wake up to a new putting green in the middle of the HOA. I would do that. What are they going to
do? Have you rip it up?
Yeah. It's going to save them money on the garden.
I mean, you can probably start working on it at like 4:30 or 5. I think most residents are asleep.
No, 4:35 is when they wake up to do their morning laps. I got to get in there at like 11:30.
No, I'm talking at night.
Oh. Yeah, possibly. Yeah. 4:30 or 5. Get the ball rolling.
4 o'clock dinner. They get home and they roll out.
I got to be careful though, because some people might be watching it now, because they're asking me what venture I'm on now, and I gave out some cards. Actually, got a couple clients from it.
Nice.
So that was nice. I love everybody in my HOA. It's actually a really nice community. I didn't go to the barbecue for too long, though. I was dealing with, like I told you, I had some family emergencies. My mother was in the ER, so that was on the top of my head. Not to be the Debbie Downer of the situation.
I understand that.
But
family comes first.
Had that, then that was on the top of my mind, and then I ended up not going to the barbecue until like the last hour of it. But I just helped clean up, said hi to everyone, said bye to everyone. Stayed a little bit longer than normal. I think it ended at like 4:30. We were in the clubhouse till about 5:40 or 6. So it was nice. Wasn't too bad.
Nice.
Other than that, just kind of cross things off the to-do list over the weekend. Kind of just got stuff done, try to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot going on in town this week. I know there was like a food and wine event over at Portola.
Well,
Saturday
a rally
and Sunday.
came into town on Friday. I want to say it was Friday.
Missed that.
It was Corsa something rally. Private rally, not too big. Only reason I knew it was in town, someone posted on their Snapchat or their
What were they doing?
Instagram.
Isn't Laguna closed? Like, it's not like they had a track day.
It was just like a private 10,
let's go to
15
Monterey.
car rally that's
All right.
Aventadors, 488s. I think there's a 58 in there.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, they stayed at Portola, I think.
Oh, they must have come for the food and wine thing that was going
They
on.
probably
there
did come for the food and wine
teamed
thing.
off of that.
Yep.
Nice.
So, no, I mean, yeah, not too eventful of a weekend, but it was good. It was good.
Good.
So getting right into it, I have a little thing on my phone here I want to read off so I'm accurate. But we want to get into trades and really get into how you can get the most money for them. Is there a specific time you should introduce them? Should you hide it, or how it should be approached, I guess, right? And to put it in that sense.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't have a trade, you can ignore this part because this only pertains to those of you that do have a trade-in vehicle, which is not everyone. Not every transaction involves a trade. But for those of you that do, it's important for you to understand that that is your most valuable tool for negotiation. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say it's because no matter what happens in the deal, you can always try to make up money off the trade.
Yeah, it presents a lot of opportunities for both sides of the transaction, both the dealership and the individual that's trading / buying, on when it's introduced, how it's introduced, and what information you have going into it. Because dealers will utilize your trade-in as a means to maybe supplement for discounting the car and not, allowing full value of the trade vehicle. I'm not saying that's always the case, but there are things that can happen when you don't go into a deal fully prepared with, knowledge and know-how on how trade-ins work. So, the one thing I'm going to start with is typically how consumers interact with a dealer now on trade is they will call in, ask about a car, and say, I have a trade, and they want to get an idea of what it's worth over the phone. And if there's one piece of advice I can give everyone out there for if they're going to start with over the phone, the dealer's going to ask you some questions, and they're going to say, well, hey, can you describe your car? Can you tell me this, that? When was the last time it was serviced? How are your tires? How are your brakes? How's the condition of the car? To help yourself out, and I know this will seem counterintuitive for a second, but please do not say, my car is perfect. From a dealer's perspective,
But it is.
Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
Perfect.
Every time I heard somebody say, my car's perfect, I couldn't wait to see that car in person to find every little thing wrong with it. Now, this seems crazy, but on the flip side, when I had someone say, well, yeah, my car's in pretty good shape. I got one wheel, has curb rash on it. I got a ding on one of the door. There's a scratch on the back on the trunk from loading stuff in. I put tires on it maybe, 6, 8, 10 months ago. When you're more upfront, it actually will produce better results for you. And I know that seems counterintuitive because so often we feel like we're in this game with the dealership where it's like a gotcha situation and they're trying to take full advantage. But not being truthful or, not trying to present your trade in the right way actually will have more hindrance in the long run.
100%.
And the tough part is, say a dealer goes, okay, it's excellent, and they give you a number based off excellent condition. They give you that number, and it's in your head, and it's not going anywhere. And you get in there, and then they find all the things that are wrong in that car.
And they bully you.
And
down on the price.
then they tell you what the real value is of the car, and you go, oh, no, they told me it was, X. It was higher. It becomes harder for you as a consumer to understand the true value of your vehicle within the deal at that point. So, step one, if you're going to do it over the phone and you want to get numbers and you want to talk to somebody before you go in, be truthful about the condition of your car. There's a lot of things you can do. Dings and dents bigger than a credit card. That's what they're going to look for. On your tire tread, not everyone has a tire tread depth gauge at home, but pretty much everyone has a penny. So if you take a penny, you hold Abe's head upside down, you want to make sure the tread goes above his hairline. That's a good way to know where your tire tread's at.
What if he has a bad hairline on that penny?
That's the same on every penny.
Maybe it's not. You don't know.
All right.
Well, have you looked at every single penny? Because I'm pretty sure there's collectors out there that collect the pennies.
Well, I'll tell you what. For every viewer out there that requests a penny, we'll send them a fresh penny with a proper hairline.
Yeah, but is a fresh one going to work?
Yeah.
What if we found one from like the 70s?
As long as the hairline's right.
Anyway,
we'll send
back
it out.
to trades. No, but to touch on what he was saying is that with trades, this happened last week. I was working with a client, and she had a trade. She had a BMW. We were trying to get her a new Hyundai. And I called into the dealership. Talked to the salesman. The salesman got my email. I don't know if it was the salesman that said anything or if the managers were watching over the emails, but realized the email that the salesman got was too perfect, meaning it had too much information. It was too at the ready. Typically, when clients reach out to dealerships, there's a lot of kind of back and forth to get really all the information you need. So a GSM, general sales manager, or a fleet manager immediately reached out to me. He asked if I was a broker. He asked a bunch of questions. I said, no, helping a friend get a car. How can I help? XYZ. Well, I said, look, I have this trade. It's I think it was a 12 at the time, or it is a 2012 BMW X5. I don't remember everything on the car because I'm dealing with so many cars. But bottom line, I told him, look, this is the condition of the car. And we laughed because every time I've worked with a client on their trade, I always tell the dealership, it's in pretty good condition, and I'm not saying this as a client. This is really what it is. I'm going to forward you over all the pictures. You can look at it. It's in almost like new condition. However, there's a scratch on the rear quarter panel and a ding on the front left driver's side. Sent him all the pictures, and he emailed me back like, wow, you're not lying. It actually is in pretty good condition. Because like you said, whenever someone says their car is perfect, or, it's brand new.
It's not.
The bumper's missing, or something crazy, or all four rims are curved like a toddler was going through the teething phase. Like,
unless you keep your car in a showroom and don't drive it, your car is not perfect.
But mine is. Yeah. So anyway, going on. So yeah, bottom line, be honest to the dealerships. Showcase everything. That way, you know your immediate price. That way, when you show up, because they're going to do a sight unseen value, and then they're going to do a sight seen value appraisal. Be honest with the dealership. That way, when you get there, you're not getting the runaround, or you're not feeling like you're getting a runaround, and then they also don't feel like, great, now we got to go back and forth with this client. The salesman you've gotten might not be a veteran in sales. He might not know how to break the news to you about your car or anything like that. I mean, being off about any part of any deal in a car deal can actually start to spiral the whole thing out of order and making it just feel very uncomfortable for both sides. And when the management side of the dealership gets uncomfortable, they get angry and they get annoyed and they don't want to be as lenient. So if you're looking for the best deal, if you're looking for the best experience, you want to be upfront about everything and make everything as smooth as possible, which you would think you're the client, you're the consumer, you're always right or whatever it is. It's not always the case.
Yeah, and there's two parts to that, depending on what you're buying. But if you were buying a used car and you're trading in, they're going to point out everything that's wrong on your car and assign it an appropriate value. It gives you the opportunity to do the same thing on a used car. You can go to their car, the one that you want to buy, and say, well, these are the things that I think are wrong with it, and either use that to negotiate the price or get some of those items addressed, because the value that they're going to assign your trade-in is based off the condition as it sits. And the car that you're buying should be based off not the highest in the market, like it's absolutely perfect, unless they've done the necessary recon and it is a perfect used car. But if it's not, use that to your advantage. You know, hey, you appraised my car in its current condition. I think this car is worth X in its current condition because of these items that need to be addressed. And a lot of dealers, you know, not everyone goes through perfect recon. They don't do all the dings and dents. They don't fix the curb rash all the time. They don't fix every little minor scrape or scratch. And sometimes that's to open it as a tool for negotiation and say, hey, if you fix these items, would you buy the car? Or if we took some money off, it's a tool for negotiation. So use that to your advantage. Try to use it in tandem with your trade. But the point being, if you're going to do it over the phone to start, be truthful about it, because if you're just going to go and say it's perfect, they're going to give you either a range and say, it's from 40 to 50. They'll give you a wide range so that you have a really high number in there and you're intrigued, but there's also a low number to protect themselves, and they can say, hey, we told you it was this range over the phone.
I also feel like you're going to get more money for your trade when being truthful, because as soon as you come into a dealership and you think your car is worth, $200,000, but MSRP new 7 years ago was $80,000, bottom line, I feel like when you come in truthful, dealerships are more inclined to work with you on the price instead of just, oh, it's not perfect. There's a list of reasons wrong. Ding them, hit them between the eyes, and tell them why their car is not worth the amount it is. Meanwhile, when you come in, you go, hey, look, this is what my car is. This is what I got. I know what I got. This is what's wrong with it. This is what's perfect with it. KBB or whatever value is around here, I want this much. Or don't even say how much you want. See what they offer you. And then counter offer and go, look, that's great. I want to get this number.
Yeah.
And they will go back and forth, because I feel like also, when you say your car is perfect, it comes in and it's not perfect, then they're like, what else is wrong with it?
Yeah.
And there's more issues. But with that out of the way, yes, be honest. It actually is going to work more in your favor. It's going to help more. It'll be easier.
So often the reaction is to just be as guarded as possible and
Correct.
try to hide everything. And that all it does is hurt the ability to negotiate and make a deal.
It hurts both, because as soon as you're guarded, like I said, I feel like dealerships just get agitated, and then the customer experience is pretty awful from there, because the salesman's like this middleman that's trying to keep, the divorced parents happy. Oh, my manager said that, he's really willing to go up on the price, but meanwhile, the manager's like, what are we fucking doing here?
Right.
What are we doing?
Right.
So it's not fun. Be honest. Now, with that out of the way, bringing up trade. Let's say we don't do it on the phone. Let's say we find a car, we go into the dealership, we like a car, you guys like a car, you have a trade-in. Would you say, what's the best time to bring it up? Beginning of the deal? I mean, after you do the test drive, after you sit down, when you start getting paperwork going, or after you're kind of halfway through the paperwork status? Not like finance, but like you're negotiating. What would you say, in your opinion?
Yeah, so from the consumer side, for me personally, I probably wouldn't bring it up until I've actually worked initial numbers on the car that I'm interested in buying. And the reason for me on that as the consumer is I want to leave as much opportunity for negotiation as possible. If you come in right in the get-go and before you drive the car, which a lot of dealers are going to try to find out right away, if you got a trade and appraise it to make the best use of your time while you're on a test drive, they're going to have numbers for you when you get back. But what that does is it gives them control of what money is going to shift where. So
Correct.
If they find out they need to show you a discount, then maybe they go back a little bit on the trade. So it's not always the easiest for consumers to kind of hold that and say, no, I'm not trading anything in until you work numbers. But that is probably one of the strongest strategies for getting the best deal on the car you're buying and the most value for your trade. Now they can still at the end be like, I don't want your car unless I'm getting this. But the piece I want to go back to, if you're not doing it on the phone, is what information you can have going into it so that you're as educated as possible. And the golden standard for trading, the resource for that is KBB, Kelley Blue Book. It's what everyone uses. It's, now what a large majority of the auto industry uses for showing their trade-in sheets to customers, what a current market value is on that car. But what you as a consumer need to understand is there are rating tiers to how those values are assessed. And there's excellent, very good, good, and fair. Now, 99% of the time, a dealership is going to rate your car somewhere between fair and good. Most of the numbers are going to be shown as fair. If your car is in better shape, typically you can get a bump to good, but you're going to get a number presented that's an average, and that average is based on what's actually happening in the marketplace, and it combines the highs and the lows and gives you, an average number in the middle of what your car with your equipment should be worth. So KBB is a fantastic resource to have ahead of time, but do not make the mistake of assessing your value online of your trade-in car and selecting excellent for condition, because I can almost guarantee your car, just like we discussed, is not excellent. Now, if you got a showroom car that's absolutely pristine and you roll it off a truck into the drive aisle for appraisal, then you're probably going to get very good, or you can push to get a little bit more. But typically when you're doing those self-evaluations online, you want to be looking at good or fair for value, and be honest with yourself. KBB does a great job of giving you a description of what those values actually mean. It gives you a percentage of what cars actually appraise under each condition, and it shows you, actual real-world values for those vehicles. Now, the thing that you can do to make sure that it's not manipulated from there is make sure that all your equipment is shown on those appraisals that they give you.
True.
So KBB does allow you to get a value on your car without any equipment included. But if your car has a lot of extra equipment, you want to make sure that that's selected in their calculation. So you can ask for a printout of a KBB, a book sheet is what it's called, and they'll show it to you, and you just want to make sure your add-on items are itemized on there and you're actually getting the value for what your car has. So number one, information that you should bring with you and be prepared is do a KBB yourself, but be honest about it. Two would be to shop it around without interacting with a human to a few of the online resources that are available out there. So KBB does also offer an instant cash offer. It allows you to submit your information the same way, but get back an instant value that a KBB authorized dealership that participates in their buying program will buy the car for. I'll give a little caution on that because typically the value is a little lower unless it's a very specialty car, because you got to remember they're giving you a guaranteed value without seeing the car that they're willing to pay for it. But it does give you a good benchmark on probably the lowest value of what your car should achieve as a trade-in.
One thing I want to touch on as you go on about the KBB process, you mentioned it in the beginning, right? When you go on a test drive, if you bring up your trade, they're going to appraise it while you're gone. They're going to maximize effort at time. They're going to tell you your time is valuable. We want to get it done for you. But really what it is, and what I preach when I tell clients, what I tell friends and family is that the dealerships lie. They lie. They con. It's a business. They're there to make money. Can't blame them for it. But
no, we also, just to be clear, we love dealerships. We have to work with them every day.
He has people in the dealerships that he still cares about. Dealerships con people. That's what it is.
But they do lie.
All the
buyers
time.
do too.
Buyers lie, of course.
Consumers
buyers
do all the time.
lie. But why do buyers lie?
So they feel like they have to because they're being
lied to. Oh, that's crazy how it goes full circle. So back to what I was saying is, don't get me wrong. There's people in some dealerships that are very nice. They're great individuals. They're caught in the system. They pay the bills. They're content. They're happy. They don't want to take a risk. They don't want to go anywhere else. But majority of dealerships have issues. Bringing up your trade during that test drive period, what you don't know, what that salesman didn't tell you, and what is just secondhand nature to dealerships is when you bring in the trade paperwork, here's their keys, here's their VIN, here's their miles, blah, 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 car's parked, wherever it's parked, I'm going to take one on a test drive. That manager, whoever that he gave those keys to or she gave those keys to, then has a follow-up question of what are they looking to get? How much do they want for their car? Do they want a discount on our car? They ask a couple little questions that are actually pretty key questions, because if they say, hey, look, Timmy over here wants $7,000 for his car. Our car's priced at $45,000, but he also, I can tell, he did bring up something around a dealership 40 minutes north that has their car for $44,000. They're going to move the money around, so it seems like you got a better deal than the dealership from Joe Schmo North or whatever it is. But all they're doing is they ask these questions and they dig deep to move money around, to manipulate the deal, to make it happen. Now, granted, it's a business. I can understand that.
Yep.
It's part of the game, but it is 2023, and I feel like we're all human. Everyone knows we're here to make money. I don't think anyone works for free. Even if someone says it's free, there's a charge. The charge is there. Either it's trying to get a name out, whatever it is, trying to get something out of that person in the future. However that lies, however that connection may be there, nothing is free in this world. But dealerships do stuff in a very shady way. So your trade, bring it up later after you get your initial numbers. If you're going to test drive and they ask, hey, you going to trade that car in that you pulled up in today? I don't know. Might keep it. Kind of like it. Don't think I'm going to get rid of it. Just blow over the question. Move on. Be honest about your trade, because at the end of the day, yes, you're playing games with the dealership. They're playing games with you. But at the end of the day, let's just be honest with each other. It's easy to get the negotiating done. Be honest. Bring the trade in. Know the value of your trade. Know where you want to stand on your trade. And bring it up after you get your initial numbers. That way they can't move money around on you.
Yeah, so the other part of having that information when you come in is to have a backup if you wait till the end to show the trade and they're like they go really low on the value and you're like, well, that's ridiculous, but they're trying to protect because maybe they showed a discount already and they're trying to make up a little bit of that. The other resources you can use without interacting with a person are very quick to give you numbers, and those are Vroom, Carvana, CarMax. You can go on all their websites, submit your trade-in information. You can submit, it's like 8 picture minimum, and they will give you a value within 15 minutes on your car. They'll pick it up from you. What that does is it empowers you to not, be restricted to going into the dealership, saving it till the end. They give you a low number because they already discounted the car and you have no choice but to trade it in. You can say, hey, great, I got an offer. I know somebody that'll buy it from me for X. Doesn't have to be a part of this deal. I'll still buy the new car because you discounted it for me, and I'll handle the trade on my own. Or they'll step up and say, well, we'll take it as part of the deal, and you went out.
As one thing, just to kind of bring up as an example, actually, with my client, I was reaching out to a dealership in the LA region, trying to get them a car. I had a trade for her. I went ahead and reached out. Now, when I reached out to get this car purchased, I had all my information ready, what the client wanted, where we were going to finance, how much we're putting down. I mean, everything down to even having her insurance and driver's license on hand and ready to go. But what I did reach out and I let the general sales manager know is, look, the way I did it is I didn't get a value of the trade. I looked up the value. I KBB'd the car. I did an honest appraisal of it. I had 360-degree photos, interior and exterior. So I reached out to him. I did a KBB on the car. Private party and trade-in value, I think it was, the peak was 84 to 8,700, 8,400 trade-in, 87 private. So I reached out to him. The lowest was like 69. So I reached out and said, look, hey, this is what I got. I'm going to send you pictures right now. Pictures are attached to this email. I want to get this. I want to shoot this straight in the face. I want to get it done. Give me 8,200 out the door. He's like, well, we can do 7,000. And I was like, look, Tustin Hyundai did 7,000. Or I was like, Tustin Hyundai did 8. He's like, do you have literature on that? I'm like, no, I didn't save anything. You guys have the car I want. I moved on from them. I'm here now. And he's like, well, I'm really trying to compete with the deal. And he said something along the lines of, I'm shooting in the dark. Please help me out. Here, I have it right here. He basically just said, I'm shooting in the dark. Help me out. I want to get this deal done, but I need something to back it up. And I said, you're not shooting in the dark. I've given you all the information you've needed. Let's get this deal done. And I kind of finagled it myself, but if you know your value, if you know where you at or where you stand, you can negotiate yourself. And you can kind of set the ball in your court instead of giving them the ball, giving them control, and then you trying to wiggle it out of their hands.
Yeah, your power is going to be information going into it. So the more informed and prepared you are, the easier it's going to be for you to understand, where things are going.
I had the information. I told him I wanted this much for the car. He said, this is what I can do. And I basically just said, oh, well, a dealership so close to you that can probably get the same car is doing 1,000 more. And
yeah, it's just the
ability
to not be stuck in having to trade it in at that moment and feel powerless to the deal. It's having those backup opportunities that make it, less one-sided a transaction.
Granted, yeah. So trades, be honest right from the get-go. It's going to help you guys tremendously. It's going to help the dealership. when the dealership's happy, trust me, they're more lenient to do stuff for you. Don't bring up the trade immediately unless you're on the phone, of course. If you're going in person, you're test driving, wait. Like I said, I want you to be honest with the dealership. Holding that information from them isn't necessarily lying to them, but if they ask, I don't know yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Because at the end of the day, be honest about the trade, but get away from the fact that they can move money around on you and numbers and kind of trick you and finagle you. And it'll be interesting to see you guys start doing this more often, seeing how dealerships start to like that. But be honest, wait to bring it up. Information is the biggest one. It's key. Know everything about your trade and be realistic. When you're buying that same car, you're not going to want someone to tell you it's perfect, and it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Yeah, imagine yourself walking on the lot trying to buy that thing. Are you really going to say, oh, this is a perfect used car? Everything's perfect about it. It needs nothing. No.
Exactly. So, information, I would have to say, is the biggest one.
Yep.
If more information you have, the easier it is for you to get the money you want. So, keep that in mind. Do what you want with it. Listen to us. Don't listen to us. What do we know? We're just two guys on the couch. Now, kicking it off. So trades, there you go. Perfect. If you guys have any other questions regarding the cars, link them to us, text them, call us, comment on our Instagram, comment on our YouTube page. Any questions at all, we answer Q&As every single week, which we will be answering a question here at the end of the episode. But going into the news for this week, one thing.
News.
One thing I want to touch on because makes me all.
It's near and dear to your heart.
Makes me all
Hold
warm
on, let's
inside.
give everyone a chance to guess what manufacturer you're going to talk about. What happened in the world of Porsche this week?
Ooh, how'd you know? So Porsche, they changed their crest, and I want to say it was the last change they had was 2008 is when they trademarked it.
Yeah, this is their sixth rendition.
Yep. So they changed their crest. A lot of people who are familiar with Porsche or have been up close to a Porsche badge knows that Porsche, and I forgot the terminology they used for it. Excuse me, I'm not exactly the smartest.
Aren't you a PCA member? Shouldn't you know that?
Anyway, what was going on? The Porsche crest was bumpy. Little bumps. A little bunch of bumps on it. Anyway, they have officially smoothed over the bronze. I was reading an article on it, but it was last night at like 1:30 in the morning, so I don't exactly remember the terminology they used. But it was like knurled or curled the bronze, or I don't know, some fancy term.
Yeah, but it's interesting because they added texture into the red that wasn't there previously.
Now, but the texture into the red is actually phenomenal. Now, I don't know if we have any Porsche badges behind us directly. No, we don't.
I think there's the one on the wheel over there.
Yes, so on the Porsche badge, you have the gold, the red, and the black. Now, the gold used to have bumps, kind of a texture to it. That is completely smooth now. Now, above the Porsche horse, it had Stuttgart on a couple of them, and a couple of them it didn't have any words.
Yeah, Stuttgart's now black.
Now it's black above the horse. Same with the lettering, too. They made the lettering, I think, a different black on the top.
Well, it did have it previously. The previous rendition did have Stuttgart as well. It just wasn't filled in.
It wasn't filled in, correct. It was just embossed onto the badge. Now, basically, the entire badge has no texture, no bumps. It's completely smooth, except for one part, the red. The red has this honeycomb pattern, more of honeycomb that is supposed to resemble carbon fiber.
Yeah, I mean, it's so small on there. I don't know that you're going to pick that up. I can maybe get Sloan over there. She got a new magnifying glass this weekend. I forgot about that.
And you didn't get her.
Maybe we can send her over to one of the new crests to check it out.
Actually, end of 2023 is when they'll start hitting cars. They're going to hit the Taycan or the Panamera first.
All right.
Yeah. But new badge, the badge actually looks really clean. I think for photographers, it'll be really something to capture. If you go ahead and you are filming a Porsche of a newer generation, kind of showcase that badge. That badge should be interesting. I think it actually looks a lot more classy than how it did. Now, I'm not saying the Porsche badge didn't look classy. I think it kind of gave that little bump.
So what was the significance of doing it now?
What do you mean?
Why did they do it this year?
I don't know. I don't really looked that deep.
Did you read your notes? This is actually a celebration for a
75 and 75th anniversary. That's right. I'm blanking.
People might think I'm the PCA member.
This guy over here, right here. He knows everything and anything about cars. Ask him any question on the spot. He'll tell you exactly what it is.
As long as it's not a Porsche.
As long as he has ChatGPT open. No, but so small kind of change coming to the Porsche world. It is a very nice change. I think it's very minimal, but it actually is going to help a lot. Not like the brand needed help, but it's there. For you did mention something in the car world that happened.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at my notes here.
Here we go.
There it is.
ChatGPT is responding.
ChatGPT is no. Stop. Genesis, not a brand that we've talked about yet.
Nope.
Not typically one I would bring up. I give them credit for what they're doing as a sub brand of Hyundai. They're creating their own Lexus and Cadillac and Audi, however you want to spin it. But they unveiled this week the new GV80 SUV coupe body style. It's going to be introduced or coming out later this year. But they showed it in this bright orange, straight off a Lamborghini Urus, that I thought looked pretty fantastic. And I don't know if you were able to see the inside pictures, but they did a really nice Alcantara interior, had sport bucket seats front and back. It was pretty impressive.
I looked at some of the screenshots from New York, and the orange wasn't bad. The interior, the bucket seats are very wild. I want to say they remind me of Porsche's bucket seats.
Oh, yeah, especially the backing.
The houndstooth and the backing. Very aggressive, very sporty seats. I think they look great. The roll cage bar in the trunk, that was interesting.
Yeah, I really liked the spoiler, the rear spoiler.
The spoiler did good. I think the front profile, aggressive. The rear, aggressive. The one profile that couldn't get along with is the side shot. Something about...
Too sharp in the back?
It's got
like a bunch of different vibes going on. Like it has like Aston Martin DBX vibes going on.
You got the weird tail line, but the thing that really bothers me, and was it the Elantra? What Hyundai did it where the headlights went up in from the front end and they went up into the hood? What Hyundai was that?
I don't know.
There's a Hyundai. I want to say it's a Hyundai or it's a Kia. Someone's seen it out there, and I know whoever's watching this, you guys will understand. Someone will understand. There's a Hyundai or Kia that has headlights, and then the DRLs continue onto the hood. It's really weird looking. Anyway, the new Genesis, the headlights continue on, and they wrap around, and they're on the side, right where the driver door connects with the quarter panel or the passenger door, when a badge or something is typically there. But they're cut off, too. They're not a continuous line. It's like cut off, like it was wrapped around under the panels and then brought up out of the panels again. It looks a little weird. I don't know why.
We'll drop a link in the description.
It's not an off-road vehicle.
So everyone can take a look.
We don't need rock lights.
And see what they think.
It's a sport car.
I mean, I give them credit, though. It's a pretty wild rendition of a
looks
family
fantastic.
SUV. I mean, it looks really, really good for a non-European exotic product.
But it's also only 4 seats. So
it is. Yeah, captain's chairs in the back. But they are captain's buckets. So,
oh snap!
2 adults, 2 kids, family of 4.
Throw that on some bags.
You can have some fun.
Town. No, but it looks great. I have to say, Genesis, Hyundai, a lot of these brands that I'm going to be completely honest, I was against years ago, and they don't compete and they don't, look the look, or they're not even close to being on par with these luxury brands. I was biased. And over the last couple of years, these brands have come a very, very long way. And it's actually very nice to see.
I'm pretty sure they just won Car of the Year.
Okay, let's slow down. Let's not. No, I was kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they did this
Genesis?
past year, Motor Trend. Yeah, I think the Genesis, their flagship sedan, which is
G90?
supposed to be, like the S-Class, 7 Series, A8. People
they look
blown away by that car.
Really good. They've done a lot. I think they're coming a long way. Props to them. Props to every auto make and auto manufacturer that is really just taking the extra step to compete with these luxury brands for a half the price or a third of the price or whatever it might be. So props to them. I'm interested to see what it is. From my understanding, the engine has not been released or announced yet, but they are speculating that during the New York show, it was a V6 bi-turboed. So I'm curious to see where that goes. Not everything needs to be a V8, believe it or not.
No, it doesn't.
No? So I still think some of the most fun cars are the V6s.
Just slap a few electric motors in there.
Okay, maybe not electric. Electric's cool, but
you just need a nice inline six in there.
Yeah.
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 Something like that.
Great, something like that.
Cool.
So, other than that, in the news, what's been going on? I mean, we got Formula One. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But
yeah, Formula One, we don't normally touch on. I know we may not have a huge viewership out there on Formula One. Max Verstappen continues to roll. Where I got to give credit, shout out to Mercedes. They looked absolutely terrible in practice and even qualifying. George Russell was out Q2. I think he was P12 to start the race. And Hamilton made it to final qualifying. I think he was 6th, P6 maybe to start. But they finished ultimately 2-3. George came up 9 places to finish on the podium. I mean, they had terrible performance, practice and qualifying, did some last minute tweaks, picked up a little more downforce, which really had them running stronger in the corners than everyone else, other than Max. But to a nice result for them. They're trending in the right direction to hopefully give Red Bull some competition, because it doesn't seem like anyone else is consistently able to compete right now. So
I think they asked ChatGPT how to get more downforce.
Hey, why not? ChatGPT is a genius.
Literally. So yeah, Formula One news. Other than that, not too much going on in the automotive world. But Q&As. We did have one question submitted. So going back to our Q&As, if you guys notice a weird stutter in the video, last week, or was it the week before, our camera died.
It was last week.
Last week. All right, yeah, our camera died. Charging stuff, still a thing of the future. We haven't understood it yet. Well, this time we charged the camera up, but bottom line, camera decided to say it was overheating. So we got a question that we want to answer. It's actually from my significant other, Leticia, and the question states,
can we know more about what sparked your individual interests and passion for cars? We know Cameron's a Porsche fanboy. Is there any background as to why? And Chris likes Lambos. Again, why? Also, can we know more about your career backgrounds in some more detail? Great videos. Looking forward to the next one.
So I think to start, we'll touch on our career backgrounds. I started mine when I was 18, came fresh out of high school, wanted to become a salesman. I figured I love cars. I love to talk to people. Why wouldn't I be perfect in the automotive world? Well, my first interview was at Toyota. I applied at Toyota, think, okay, I'm going to work my way through the ranks, through the dealership and through the brands. And my first interview was actually with Quincy, one of my old managers at Mercedes. He told me I did not have what it takes to work in the auto industry, which, being 18, being young, I left there, just completely stumbled. I wondered, why don't I have what it takes to be a salesman? I love cars. I love everything about them. I can talk to people. I can convince a lot of people to buy a lot of things, not in a bad way, but in a good way, just showing them what the product is, what it's about, and how it can benefit them in their day-to-day lives. Why wouldn't I be able to sell something I love? So it bothered me, and I realized, ding, 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 dealerships just like people who are really good at talking and conning. Oh, no, that's why I wasn't perfect. But anyway, I got into the dealership world. I got offered a job at Cadillac, Hyundai, and Chevrolet at the time. About a week and a half later, the gentleman, the GM running that store, his name was Peter Sersha. He was an interesting man, but he heard I was looking to get into the automotive world. He knew my family, offered me a job. I worked there for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I think. After there, I had a rough experience with the dealership world. Felt like it was a little iffy. I left. Ended up getting back into the dealership world a couple years later with Land Rover, Volvo, Jaguar, from Land Rover, Volvo, Jaguar, which I loved. It was a pleasure working for them. I ended up going to Mercedes Monterey, which was cool. I had no issues. A lot of the staff there is fantastic, but at the end of the day, over the years of working for different dealerships, I've realized that they all kind of still morph to the same thing, and that being corruption, and a little bit different than how my morals work. So here I am. That's my background on the genre of where we work and why I do what I do. Do you want to go ahead and touch on your background first?
Yeah, so how I got into the automotive industry is, I guess, a little interesting. When I was in college, my job was at a Verizon wireless store. So it was my first real introduction into like heavy sales. But I did that in my off time. I was like the one guy in the house of hockey players that worked outside of school and sports. But that's what I did. And, you know, it came pretty naturally to me. I think with my upbringing through high school, I never had a challenge talking to people that I was just meeting for the first time. I was really good at just having casual conversation. So it worked out really well for me through school. And when I left school, moved back home for a little bit, I was going through some medical stuff. I had a heart condition that I was trying to figure out at the time, and reverted back to, I was just like playing golf every day and doing like mini tour stuff at that point. And my parents finally said to me one day, like, we love you, but you have to start doing something productive. You can't just play golf every day. So I said, well, what do I enjoy and what am I good at? And I was like, well, I know I'm good at selling, but I don't really want to go do the cell phone thing again. And I said, well, I love cars. I've always liked cars. I've always been interested in cars, car shows. So maybe I can do something that's the same. But for me, I wanted to do like BMW, Mercedes, Lexus. And I interviewed with this group in North Carolina in the Raleigh area to go into a BMW store. And they're like, you have no experience. You don't know what you're doing. We're not going to put you in a BMW store. And I was like, is it because I'm young, or I have sales experience? They're like, yeah, you don't have car sales experience, though. We're not going to start you in a Highline store. So I got put in a Lincoln dealership. That was my first interaction in the car world. And we were a standalone Lincoln dealership across the main road running through Raleigh, across the road from a Ford dealer. And the Ford dealer, it was not the same ownership. So that was an absolute struggle, because I can't tell you how many times people be like, well, this is just a dressed up Ford. This is just a dressed up Ford. Like the same thing Lexus people here and Acura people. And
I can just
Audi.
go across the street and buy it for half the price.
Right. Yes, you can. You got me there. I can't contest that. It made it worse that it was a competitor. Like it wasn't our dealership group's store. But that was my first interaction. And fortunately, after about 6 months of that, our owner group built a new standalone dealership for us next to our BMW Rolls-Royce showroom. They built this beautiful Lincoln showroom that did kind of change the game for us a little bit. We had newer product coming out at the time. The MKZ was redesigned, which was a huge undertaking at that point. It was unlike anything Lincoln had ever shown. That was a really, really cool experience to go through, moving, new dealership, new showroom. Everything was high tech and nice and shiny. And we were right next to all the big ones. We had Rolls-Royce, BMW next door, followed by Mercedes, followed by Lexus, all in the same section of street. You could park at any one of them and walk the entire row. That increased a lot of traffic for us. It cut out a lot of this is just a Ford. It really set it apart as its own brand. And then I did that for a little bit. But as a younger person, I had the ability or the drive to want to continue to move up through the dealership.
Correct.
And I had done all these things for the dealer group. I had gone to, countless trainings, Pacific Institute, which is sales training, all these things to try to continue to grow within the group. But it was always like, well, you're young, you need a few more years. Well, you're young, you need a few more years. Well, I want to go to a different store then. I want to try a Highline product. No, you need a few more years. Okay, well, what if I can do, we need a finance manager here. We need another one. We were looking for one at the time or whatever. I had expressed interest. No, you're not ready for that yet. And I got tired of hearing that. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to career change. I was still playing golf on the side. Like I was still doing stuff here and there. And I found a job in golf management. And I left the dealership. And unfortunately, I did get a promotion to finance about 3 weeks before I left the dealership.
Ouch.
And I got the promotion. It was like, yeah, thanks. But I told you for the last few months, this is what I was looking for. And I wasn't good enough then. But now all of a sudden, since you haven't hired anybody and you need somebody, you're okay with doing it. I was like, I've already made a decision to move on. So joined this golf management company. They relocated me to California, just how I got out here. Did that for about a year, but things were pretty wild out here versus the structure they had on the East Coast. So did that for about a year and a half, and absolutely hated it at a certain point.
Wow.
And said, you know what? I was really good at cars. I was enjoying that. I just wasn't enjoying the lack of respect because I was young. So I interviewed at a few dealerships here and took a position at BMW. And that was great for a little bit until it became the old, you're going to work every weekend. You're going to work till 8, 9, 10 at night, whatever demands. It's what you're going to do. That's the car industry, and that's how this industry is, and that's how you work, and that's how you make money, whatever. There wasn't a lot of, two-sidedness to that negotiation. If you needed something like, I think the final straw for me was my wife's grandfather had passed away, and we had to go to a funeral for that. Was it her grandfather? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was her No, it was her grandmother. And we had no, it was her grandfather at the time. Sorry. We had to go to a funeral, right? It was an ash scattering in Florida, and I had requested the time off with plenty of notice. It was like a month and a half advance scheduled ash scattering. It's not like he had just passed away, we got to go now. Like I gave work plenty of notice. No, can't do it. I'm like, I have to go to this. Can't do it.
Was it the end of the month?
No, it was like the middle of the month. And it was just the GSM that was there at the time. It was just like pulling teeth to try to get something that I needed.
Was it the GSM that was there at the time?
It was.
The person?
No. It was somebody different.
Gotcha.
He actually, after I left BMW, he was gone a month after that. He got let go. So,
the GSM?
Yeah. But,
okay.
Like I got approval the day before the trip. He told me the day before I was supposed to go that I could go. And I was like, great. I already booked travel. Whether you were going to let me go or not, I was going.
I love that in the industry.
And I came back from that and I walked in like my next scheduled day. I went to see him and I said, I'm done. I resigned.
And then you went from BMW to?
Went from BMW to Mercedes. So another guy had moved from BMW to sales at Mercedes about a month before me. And I had talked to him from time to time, and he kept saying how great it was, and the atmosphere was way different, and the vibe was way different, and the way they did deals was way different. It was a different way of thinking versus the normal auto industry at the time. It was still a family-owned dealership. That was the only store they had. Like, it was and I was psyched for it. Came in and absolutely loved it. Weekends were important to me at the time because
family.
Anna and I were, in a fresh relationship, and that was growing pretty rapidly. So I actually worked to have Saturday off. I offered to do 6 days a week to have one weekend day dedicated, which is extremely uncommon in the auto industry. Uh-huh. Unless you're a super veteran, you might get like a Sunday off.
Yep.
But I had worked 6 days for the first, 2 months, and then moved up into a management position, and had been GSM up until 2.5 months ago.
Yeah. How long were you GSM with them?
7 years, 6.5, 7 years.
That's not. And how old were you when you got promoted to GSM?
27.
Wow. 27. If you guys aren't in the automotive world, 27 to be a GSM is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you see it maybe right now in like some of the more domestic, like you see it in a Ford dealership or a Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram. Like you can see younger guys in higher up positions. But in a Highline store, it's pretty uncommon because it's
very
definitely
uncommon.
like the good old boys are, doing things the old way. So that was great. I mean, I enjoyed it for the longest time, but the last year just grew with more and more creative differences day by day. And I was done with it. So I decided to take control of
your life,
how I operated day to day and who I did that with and how we, wanted to change things. And that's what we're doing now.
So we both have a extensive background in automotive. Chris having a little bit longer than me due to the fact that, well, he's older than me. Now, we both mentioned at the very beginning, we got into the industry because of our passion for cars. Well, where my passion began is as a little kid, not to make it weird or anything on you guys. My parents got divorced at a very young age. So seeing my parents in the same household was a thing of rarity. So cars. Why I got into cars is growing up from the ages of 2 to 5, my dad slowly gave me these Hot Wheels that him and my mother, to my knowledge, were collecting together while I was in the womb. So I have these Hot Wheels from 98, 97, 96 that were all kind of picked up, purchased along the way of me becoming from a thought to...
You were in the womb for 3 years?
Well, I'm saying... yeah, that's why I'm so smart, right? No, I'm saying from the thought of me to being in the womb to then coming out, giving birth, etc.
Gotcha.
They collected Hot Wheels. But I've never really shared this and talked about it. But I guess the way to look at it is, for me, cars, my mom was in them. But... not really. She didn't care. I could be like, Mom, that's a inline 6 with 396 horsepower. She'd be like, shut up. I'm answering a business phone call. Okay, cool, great. Stay quiet in the back of the car. But my dad, whenever I got to see my dad, the weekends I got to see him, or every 3-4 months when I got to see him, it was always a car talk. There was always a car talk in it. A Ferrari that passed us on the road. When we did long road trips, it was, what car is that? What year is it? It was a game. So I think really what it was is, I think I got heavily into cars because my dad was always around them. And I think why that passion continued to grow so much is every time I got to see my father, it was about cars. And I think I started connecting and getting into cars a lot because I missed my dad as a kid growing up. I loved him a lot, and I didn't get to see him that much, and he ended up moving across the country. But I got more and more into cars because it gave us, me and him, something to talk about. So growing up, that was a big portion of it. Now, it's not like this is a cry for help, but that is a big reason why I got into it, and I'm grateful because I love cars, and I think they are extremely fascinating. I love the science and the tech behind them, but that is a big reason why I got into them.
Nico, can we get the tissues over here?
But Porsche, I mean, my dad was a Porsche guy. I grew up loving Porsche and McLarens, but the reason I've kind of drifted back to Porsche is I've driven a lot of cool cars and sports cars and supercars, no hypercars. I don't come from that kind of golden spoon, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. Porsche is a brand that is not too crazy priced, that their cars are built for drivers. They're amazing vehicles, and owning one and being behind the wheel of some, I've seen that, and I love that, and I love what the brand stands for, and I love what the Porsche Club of America stands for, and I think that's why I've drifted so aggressively into Porsche. I really do think they are drivers' cars, and I think the brand really does care about their cars being driven and not put into a temperature-controlled garage. So that's my background on why I love cars, why I'm in the industry, and why I think Porsche is what it is, and why I love the brand so much. On to you.
Nice. The world of Lamborghini.
Oh, God.
You never had a Countach poster growing up?
No, dude.
Man, who didn't? I guess you.
Well, what year did the Countach come out?
It doesn't matter. You could still have one now. It doesn't matter when it came out. There's a new Countach.
There is a new Countach.
Yeah, it's kind of old now. It came out a few years ago.
Yeah, but the new Countach is nice.
I don't know. I'd still take an old one.
Yeah, but the tech.
There's something
Power in that new
so
one.
crazy about the original Countach, like the lines, and
It does have a big sex
it's
appeal.
nuts. You can't back it up without, having the door open and hanging out half of it. And Lamborghini, where does that come into play? I think like the first time I saw one, I don't even know why, so blown away by it. I thought it was like the coolest thing. But I think my first interaction, we were living outside of Philly at the time, and I grew up a hockey player. I was playing hockey since I was like 3. And at the time, I was playing for the Junior Flyers. And it was about an hour drive from our house to practice. Practice, I think, was 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, something like that. But every time we drove to practice, we drove by this car dealership on the highway. And it was, for any of you on the East Coast in the Jersey, Philly area, FC Kerbeck may ring a bell. If not, look it up online. But they've got a really high-end dealership out there, but they always had this letter, this word up on the dealership that started with an L. And I finally asked my dad one day after driving by it every time for practice, like, what does that say? And he said, that says Lamborghini. And I was like, well, what is that? And I remember we swung in one day on the way, and that was my first interaction with a car, or a Lamborghini in person. And I think for me, it was like that nostalgic, like I could look through the windows and see what they were every time I went to practice. That was my first real introduction in person to that. It was, something that my dad and I had together, going to hockey practice all the time. We talked about it once I had asked what it was, and I had like model cars that I started to pick up at the time, and that was really cool. And my second real blown away moment was when a few years later, we lived in Atlanta, and I had a buddy whose kid on the team, his dad was really into cars. He was actually a really big Porsche guy. And he took us to the Atlanta Auto Show one year. And I can't remember I want to say it was like a 40th anniversary edition 911. Still had the 2 mini buckets in the back. And I'll never forget it, because to go to the auto show, I had to sit in the back bucket going around Metro Atlanta to get to the conference center to go to this auto show. But that was my first time going to an auto show and seeing all these crazy concept cars and manufacturers I had never really never experienced or seen. And I was just blown away. And I think from that point on, I've always just been fascinated by cars, the design of cars, performance, what's coming out, what manufacturers are trying to do, different innovations. That was a really, really cool show for me. Got to see a bunch of Lamborghinis. Ferrari for the first time, I think, was there as well. That was my first real taste of Ferrari.
Did you bite into it?
Huh?
Did you bite into it?
Wow. That's where we're at. But Lambos, I don't know. I love the design. I love the loud colors. For me, it's got to be, I think the best part for me on a Lambo is probably the exhaust. The exhaust to me sounds so unique versus all the other cars in that category. A lot of the high-end V8s and V12s sound very similar, but there's something about an Aventador that just sounds so insanely different than anything else.
I'll give Lambo that. Yeah,
their exhaust is phenomenal.
You can tell when a Lamborghini is screaming red line compared to other cars. That's for sure.
There may be, and this is a bold statement, but I think there's one car that has actually surpassed that for me in sound, and that is the Pagani Huayra R. That sounds like an absolute Formula One car.
Things just brutally loud.
Oh, I love it. But Lamborghini, I love the design. I love the loud colors. Some of the specs on the STOs are wicked. I love it. Yeah.
Now, bottom line, we love cars. We could sit here and talk about them for hours on end. Or we could sit here and talk to you about your car for hours on end and figure out how you can make the most money selling or buying your vehicle of your dreams.
Growing your collection.
Anything you need.
It.
So keep in mind, this is the the Auto Hour podcast. We do run the company, The Exclusive Collection, located in Monterey, California. And we are here to help buy, sell, store, collection management, anything that you can think about that pertains to cars, wrapping, tinting, buying, selling. The list goes on. We can help you do it. So keep that in mind. Give us a call. Anything you need, you can go to our website. You can click all the links in the bio below. But once again, any Q&As, let us know. Any questions, reach out to us. I'm Cameron.
I'm Chris.
Thank you for tuning in.
See you next week.